All right. Well, hello and welcome, everybody. We are live. My name is Yuri, and we have Nicole, who is an immigration lawyer. Nicole, why don't you introduce yourself and also what's Manifest?
Yeah, thank you, Yuri, for having me on. My name is Nicole Ganara. I am the principal immigration lawyer here at Manifest Law, where we are a tech forward and tech enabled firm. We're here to kind of help individuals in supporting their immigration journeys here to the United States.
Yes, awesome. And I love you guys because I was like, Nicole, we have a lot of audience who's asking me question about Harvard situation. I don't know what's going on, and I'm glad that you guys were kind enough to like jump on a live stream so we can help people to understand what's going on and how what this could mean and what the impact is. So if for people who don't know, maybe could you tell us like what's going on? I know few things and I have been reading news, but for layman's terms, like what's happening right now with Howard students or Trump administration, etc.
Right. So, just to provide a little bit of context, right? Essentially, the Department of Homeland Security and the Trump administration requested information from Harvard, gave them a time period to provide that information. And as part of that process, in not receiving the information that they wanted or requested, essentially chose to revoke Harvard's ability to have SEVP certification. So what does that mean? It means that they cannot issue and or maintain I-20s and similar documents for even individuals on J1s with Harvard for the 2025 and 2026 academic year. That revocation has really strong reverberations. It has a scenario where a lot of students would have the inability to even enroll into the following year or maintain their ability to stay at Harvard. But we can talk about that more deeply in the following conversations.
Okay. So and has Howard I know they were given like 72 hours to respond. Has they done anything, and like what's the current status now?
Right. So Harvard filed a complaint against the US government and essentially stated that this was unlawful. And in filing that complaint, a judge has signed off on a temporary restraining order or a TRO that blocks the government's ability temporarily to revoke that SEVP certification, right? Essentially think of it as like a temporary stay until things get resolved in the court. So for now, a lot of students are, let's call it safe, right? There's not going to be any immediate action. And the next thing that's really going to happen is next Wednesday, the judge is going to hear the arguments from the Department of Justice and proceed with the court case related to this revocation.
Okay, got it. So right now it's assuming temporary stay, but what does this mean? Like, how could this impact students who are already studying at Howard? Where do they fall, and like what do they need to do?
Right. So I'm going to kind of divide like the impacts of the students into three types of students, let's call it, right? So let's start with, I wouldn't say necessarily the easiest one, but like the most straightforward one, number one, which are incoming students. So let's say right now you've committed to go to Harvard this fall semester, you were accepted and you were planning to come to the United States to study at Harvard. Should the US government prevail in its action to revoke the SEVP certification, these students would not be able to enroll in Harvard. They would not be able to get the I-20s that they need to get, let's say, their F1 visa stamped and to come to the United States and study at Harvard, right? These
Mhm.
students would need to find either another university to enroll in, or alternatively, they're going to have to delay their start until things get resolved. So that's
Yeah.
bucket number one,
So
right?
these are
Bucket
like incoming fall 2025 student or maybe the summer program or whatever.
Correct. Like think of it as like summer program, student like a summer school. Alternatively, you're coming in as a freshman or for your first year for your master's program
Yeah.
at Harvard and the like, right?
Yeah.
I would also extend that to certain J1 scholars, right? If you were intending to join in the fall
Mm.
semester to be a J1 scholar, this could also potentially impact you as well. I want to kind of also press upon the second bucket of students and the one that are probably the most impacted, which are current students of Harvard, right? So if you're currently a freshman going into your sophomore into your junior and the like, right? The government is saying that should they prevail, you would need to transfer your SEVIS to another school in order to maintain your ability to stay and study in the United States, right? It is unclear if there is going to be a long grace period. Is it going to be 60 days, 30 days, 15 days from the SEVP revocation, right, on whether or not you can transfer to another school? But what makes this incredibly tough is that right now, we've already passed a lot of the transfer deadlines. A lot of schools, when there's a transfer application, it's usually due on or about April. We're already here in May. It's very
Yeah.
possible that universities will create some sort of special enrollment process, but it's unclear at the moment, right?
Mm.
Some students may opt to just leave the United States, see how things kind of play out, and then return to Harvard, but that still remains unclear for
Mm.
current students.
What
Right?
about, oh, sorry, I think you might cover that in the third category, but go ahead.
Yeah, and the third category, and I think can also be extremely pressing, are individuals who are on OPT at the moment,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So people who are on OPT and STEM OPT, and I feel like a lot of the news publications and a lot of communities aren't really talking about this. But you have to remember that when you're here on OPT and STEM OPT, you are here on student status, even though you've graduated, right? You need to rely on an underlying I-20 that is issued by this system that is being revoked by the government at the moment, right?
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
that,
Mm.
that being said, they're telling us that current and existing foreign students have to transfer their SEVISes. And you and I both know when you transfer your SEVIS on OPT, you're essentially going to be sacrificing your OPT, right?
Yeah.
And that's not going to be ideal. People are going to be left without their work authorizations. And this is going to have some really long-term kind of consequences for those individuals, especially if they qualify for STEM OPT. If they qualify for STEM OPT, but they're currently in their initial OPT periods, it's not like you can just come back on your STEM OPT
Yeah.
later on, right? So the good news is that right now we have the TRO. Things may get figured out. It's kind of hard to say. We will get more information as kind of the weeks go on. I am anticipating more insight by the end of next Wednesday. But we have to kind of see how things kind of go, whether it's discussions between the United States government and Harvard, right? Or let's see kind of what the courts decide, whether it's in favor of the government or in favor of Harvard.
Mm. Okay. What, and same, is this the third category also applies to STEM OPT people? Like,
Yes, it does, because when you're on STEM OPT, it's the same thing. You're reliant on that I-20 authorization. You might have gotten an EAD card, but an EAD card is a representation or a manifestation of the underlying I-20, right? Think
mm.
of it this way. Anytime you were to change jobs on a STEM OPT, you still have to declare it to your DSO. You still have to update your I-20 to reflect who your employer is going to be. Where is that I-20 going to be housed? Where is it going to be updated if you have to transfer it to another organization? And if a transfer causes your OPT and your STEM OPT to actually effectively terminate.
Yeah. 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 What happens if they, because H1B lottery season just went, they got picked in the lottery. Do they fall under that cap gap?
So that is actually a very tricky question, right? Because part of the black hole that we're seeing here right now is that we actually don't know what the government set out to
Mm.
Harvard in terms of what was allowed, what isn't allowed, what steps that they can follow, and what steps their student can follow, right? But what I will say when it comes to individuals who have been selected for the H-1B is that the sooner that your employer files at this point, the better. If your employer has not filed yet before this June 30th deadline,
Yeah.
file it. Worst case scenario, you come back October 1st, right? Because at least you can consular process. But the most important thing that everybody needs to learn from this moment is always maintain compliance, right?
Yeah.
The moment that you hear any information from your DSO, your International Students Office, and this doesn't go just for Harvard students, this is just for all students right now who might be concerned about what is kind of happening in the news and the like, is just keep in touch, maintain your news alerts, right? Make sure that you speak with the right professionals to give you the right advice, especially when it comes to immigration lawyers, right? And essentially make sure that you comply. Because if you overstay, if you miss your grace period and the like, the ramifications can be a little bit more extensive than you think. And I would rather give you at least a pathway back rather
Yeah.
than forcing something to happen.
Yeah. I see a bunch of questions here, and I was going to ask this similar kind of bucket this question into: should other university students be like, what should they be scared, nervous? Like, I'm pretty sure they're nervous about this, but like, how should they think about this?
I think what students should be thinking about right now is how prepared they can be if something similar were to occur to their university, right?
Mm.
We don't really know what's going to happen next. I don't think anyone can predict anything, but the people who can succeed are the people who end up staying in the US or are able to come back to the US are the people who are the most proactive in being prepared, right? No one's sitting here saying you need to transfer. No one is sitting here saying that you need to start panicking immediately. It's more like you need to know where you need to go if something were to happen, if it were to happen to your school as well, right? Let's say hypothetically there was only a 15-day timeline for you to transfer. You should already know what community college, what school is going to be available to you that you can enroll in quickly. Maybe think about a university or a college that has admissions on a rolling basis, right?
Mm.
Or alternatively, maybe you should contemplate talking to your family, talking to friends, seeing like, hey, maybe somebody can house me abroad temporarily if I need to leave within 15 days, right? Try to make yourself as comfortable, especially during a tumultuous time, so to speak.
Yeah, that's good. Awesome. And I know there's going to be more details coming out next week, Wednesday, like you mentioned. And we are meeting on Thursday again. So hopefully we'll have more clarity, and we can, at that time, we can also take questions and answer some questions during that time.
Right, because I really do wish that we can give a little bit more specific advice, let's say, right? But it's truly unclear. Like one of the examples that I gave earlier, which is, would the grace period be 15 days? Would it be
Yeah.
30 days? 60
Yeah.
days? Are there options outside of a SEVIS transfer? Yes or no? It is all kind of unclear at the moment, but I do think that more information will come out as each day kind of passes by. We are so early on. I want to remind everybody that all of these news stories kind of came out yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And overnight has already changed immediately. Even in the last few hours, we have copies now
Mhm.
of the TRO executed order and the like. Like these are things that are being actively analyzed, not only just by immigration lawyers, but also litigation lawyers, people who are familiar with the federal courts, right? There's just a lot of stakeholders here at play. There's a lot of factors here at play. And I don't think any reasonable lawyer wants to give bad advice at the moment other than hold steady, be as prepared as possible, and make sure that you're aware of the resources that are around you, whether it's through your school or through the lawyers that you know or family and friends who may be familiar with the process.
Yeah, 100%. Again, I know this is hard right now, not knowing what's going to happen, but thank you, Nicole, for like jumping on so quickly
No.
and helping the audience know what's going on. And hopefully we can do this again. If something were to change on Monday, Tuesday, well, not Monday, but Tuesday, maybe we'll jump on again to kind of update and let people know. Also, I want to let everyone know that Manifest is be obviously you guys help with EB1s and O1s as well, and H1B. I have sent many of my audience to your page as well. So I'll put the link in the description. So if people need to, reach out and have consultation, they can use my link. I think it has some discounts as well. But
Right.
any
And
go ahead.
yeah, sorry. So what I wanted to say is that we've navigated a lot of complex situations. We really do try our best to help you along your way in your journey. I understand that things can be extremely difficult, especially when you have like news stories like this going on. We really do our best to kind of create as stable of a scenario as possible. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you need any questions answered or any levels of reassurance. We do our best that we can, given the circumstances.
Yeah, awesome. Love it. Again, thank you, Nicole. Thank you, everybody. Hopefully, this gives you a little bit more context, and we'll be back again next week. So stay tuned for that. And again, I put manifest link in the description, so feel free to check out. But again, thank you, Nicole, for doing this. We'll be in touch.
No problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye, everybody.